Yeah, thanks for coming on. We usually just have a very casual conversation. We have a list of questions that we do want to ask, but yeah, it's great to have you here. And yeah, so how's now everybody who does follow, who doesn't know Berto is, he's really the top dogs in natural bodybuilding. You guys should definitely follow him and follow his bodybuilding journey right now. When's your contest right now?
So November 8th, it was supposed to be November 1st. I was going to go do that big ANBF show in Austria, but just certain personal logistics didn't allow for that. So now it's just going to be the mayhem. It's going to be Worlds, and I'll probably sneak in an NPC show like somewhere in there because they're everywhere and you can sign up the day before. There's no poly, 5 minutes on stage and you're done. It's like a pickup game of bodybuilding basically. So 7 weeks out as of right now in some days.
Wow. That's really coming up. And so for a little bit of history. First time I've seen Berto in person, you probably don't remember this, was back in 2022. You came to Calgary for your pro show. You did very, very well. And then there was a big wave of topic on how you developed your back to be like an absolute tortoise shell. It was amazing to actually see that in person. So that was the first time I've actually saw you. I was still I was like literally nobody. So you probably didn't really see me in the back. But I was a little bit starstruck and I was just in the back. I was like, oh my God, that's Berto. But that was my first time in CU, and then it's like that physique was absolutely amazing, and just watching you over the years and evolve from what I thought it was your peak, and that wasn't it. Just if you guys have watched him year after year, you've managed to develop your entire body, and that is actually really amazing. So we're really really curious to see what's going to be the new package that you bring in about 8 weeks. So speaking of which, what did you do within these couple of years differently from before when you trained?
Yeah, man. So I did some things right at the start, but that will only make sense like once I kind of uh, bring it like full circle back to when it wasn't going right, especially for back musculature, and then more recent times where we had some epiphanies. So it all really started, I guess, like post lockdown. I definitely needed to be reinvigorated when it comes to like my bodybuilding training, because even before that, I think I was mostly focused on the squat and good morning because I'm like, man, I just don't feel like training. We all hit those stints. You train long enough, you will. So I'm like, oh, I'll just do these, get my squat up, get my good morning up, and then lockdown happened. And oh shoot, I miss bodybuilding again. It's like, please take me back. So then when, gyms opened up again, I was really just ready to get after it and create a better physique. And this is where somewhere along there I stumbled upon Kasim Hansen's work. And the first thing wasn't necessarily, it was controversial. It was a like letting your scapulas move when you are and not keeping them retracted when you're pressing. And I'm like, no, that goes against everything. We've always been doing it this way, that way. And I gave it a shot, not just in practice, but also, did my own research and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a try. And all of a sudden, like a lot of the shoulder pain I was dealing with kind of just evaporated. It felt like more back brain dominant instead of like front brain dominant pressing. I was just pressing. And I'm like, man, this guy knows some stuff. Eventually I found out he's actually like 40 miles from me, closer at the time. And um through many visits to his dojo is how I would put it. Like he like a lot of the biomechanics stuff that you see, especially in TikTok, is like a game of telephone. Like I don't know if you guys have ever told someone something and then they pass it along. You're like, that's not what I even said, not even remotely close. But like if you go back to what, I think to a large extent has influenced people, when it comes to like, anatomy and like how muscles function is fun and it's worth like learning. It's like pop up the hood of your car every once in a while, that sort of deal. through him, I learned a lot of just good strategies. Primarily, like we sweat angles in the this part of your sternum, but for some reason, people don't think it applies to like the back, which is a much more complicated muscle group. So it was through that, taking into consideration like the strength curve and how it's different from pressing movements, and how most people can go virtually their whole life not really challenging like the most lengthened part of the range of motion, basically applying all those principles, started to see some traction finally there. And then like I was able to go back to like the beginning and why perhaps as an amateur I had a better back. And that was because I was kind of creating this strength curve that's a little bit more similar through to pressing through what is basically cheaty rows, right? Cheaty rows in that you kind of let that thing go, and that inertia as you have to, as it goes away from you and you have to bring it back, kind of makes the start of the lift more challenging. It's a very crude, very archaic way of basically accomplishing that. And then obviously, if you're already kind of doing loose form, you're probably doing cheat rows when like the shortened portion is fatigued and you're still sweeping the lengthened. The issue with this is that it's just very hard to compare like what is actual progress, and then also like it can probably in some circumstances just involve a little bit more risk. So what I was doing was more so like the more sophisticated version of that with these new strategies. So yeah, things kind of come full circle as they do many times. You go back and you're like, man, I was doing some stuff right before. I couldn't explain to you when I was much younger why cheaty rows work. They just I saw them work once I started to employ them. But then like once I got eyes on me, I'm like, shoot, I better start using like good form in the gym because now I have kids watching how I lift. So it's like, okay, now I'm squeezing. Oh, if I can't squeeze and retract all the way back, we've hit failure when technically you haven't. That's like RPE 6.
Yeah. Actually, my question. I was actually in your training group, in your, yeah, in the training group for heroic training,
Mm-hmm.
and like some of the training techniques that you use there, I love them. Like I think it was like the reverse drop set and like the lengthened partials. It was very cool to see how you programmed in there, especially for like back development and even with like the pressing as well. Like I was changing because I used to press with my chest like super up, shoulder blades really retracted, kind of more like the Mike Israel tail kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I found my chest just never developed well. And then I started to kind of flatten the back a bit more and allow more scapular movement. And it just feels so much more natural. So like, thanks for showing me that. Question two, when it comes to your nutrition, this last kind of phase in your off season compared to like before, was there anything specifically that you changed around this time, or were everything pretty similar in terms of the rate of gaining or how much protein or what your macros were looking
Mhm.
like? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. On that note, the pressing stuff before I get into the nutrition, like what another thing that like it really sealed the deal for me, my buddy Bryce Lewis, we live in the same town. For those of you guys who are not familiar with Bryce Lewis, world champion power lifter, like dude's benched over 500 naturally, like squats over 7, deadlifts over 8. Really strong dude. And I just remember seeing him bench at some point, and he was like the whole powerlifting world, especially, really cues in, and there might be benefits for them, like hey, keep those shoulder blades like back. Um, but he wasn't doing that. Like he was not doing that. Like he would just grab it and then just press it. And I'm like, but you're not doing that. And I literally took the messaging, the dogma to heart because, I think in general, like bodybuilders have a little bit more a better cueing when it comes to like what's taking place in the back. And unlike a lot of these powerlifters, I literally kept my like scapula pinned throughout the whole range of motion, like as far back as I could. So yeah, much like you, I was just like, man, this just feels like again, I'm not using my frontal lobes at a certain point. Once I learn the movement, it's just go, go, go. So, and my shoulders have not like felt this good in like 15 years, basically. So, um, but yeah, nutritionally, not a whole lot changes, I think, and it shouldn't this way because at the end, when it comes to nutrition, it's just so straightforward. It's like it's the training and finding better strategies there that's most likely your bottleneck. Whereas with the nutrition, it's just like eat a high enough protein diet, eat enough calories, and for the most part, that along with some good food variety, especially whole foods, you're kind of set. Like that can just kind of just float around in the background. I think the biggest difference is that I just didn't see as many weigh-ins north of 180 this go around compared to previous off seasons. And a lot of that is just the ROI is just not worth it at this point. It's like why gain 30 pounds to maybe gain a pound of muscle? It just doesn't sound very wise. And I do think like so long as you are at a healthy body fat, the power of the recomp is underappreciated. But here's the key: it's like what a healthy body fat is for you, it might not be what you like necessarily, right? It doesn't mean abs for everyone. Um, so for me, that happens to be somewhere about around 171, 175. Like I'm there. If I'm there, I'm metabolically flexible. Like my body has an easy time using both exogenous and endogenous fuel to like power me. And evidence of this is like if my meal is kind of backed up and I'm late on the feeding, I don't really feel it. Whereas right now in prep, if I go too long without eating, I'm not metabolically flexible. My body would much rather not use this certain ratio of endogenous to exogenous fuel. That's probably not, I'm not at a good place to recomp right now. So I think people undervalue that, especially once you've gotten, I'd say even the majority of your intermediate muscle out of the way. That doesn't mean I'm anti-gaining, anti-bulk, because realistically, I think especially for new lifters, they need this because it's going to keep your progressions at a faster rate so that you can remain engaged. Whereas for me, I'm much more patient at this point. I would much rather um, go from, I don't know, 173 to 174 average over the course of 4 months and see that my dumbbell press went up through 4 sets, 6 total reps. Because I'm like, okay, that's actual probably contractile tissue or most of it anyways. Whereas if I gain 10 pounds, I'm like, okay, like it's kind of contaminated here, the data is, right? So yeah, I think these days it's probably in my best interest to just kind of stay leaner and tighter, especially as I have less muscle to gain, as my off-season habits improve. And it's kind of cool. You kind of look all right most of the year. And here's one thing I think a lot of young bodybuilders like forget, like your skin can only expand and shrink so many times, and eventually you will see it. Like the last 2 preps, first time I've ever had to wait on skin to tighten up. That just was not a thing 15 years ago. So take care of your skin and don't make it work OT for 2 pounds of muscle.
Yeah. Didn't you like this was probably way back, but didn't you get up to like 250 or something in one of your off seasons when you were younger or something like that? Yeah.
Yeah. I think my first true gaining phase when I said, you know what, I'm just going to do this bodybuilding thing. And I came from an era where like anything was possible as a natural athlete, which there's some toxic elements to that, but at the same time, it also just kept you ambitious, wide-eyed, and hopeful. And I wouldn't ask a lot of like kids my age or people at the gym my age about their use of steroids. So whenever I would see them like make progress and so and so gained 30 pounds like these last 6 months, it's like I gotta keep up with these folks. So it became that kind of game. And yeah, I got it all the way up to the point where I had one weigh-in at 250, fully clothed. At the end of the day, realistically, when you're that big, my dry scale weight was probably upper 230s. But nevertheless, I learned the hard way that that was just a lot of wasted time because when I came back down to a reasonable weight, I remember hitting PRs. Like I hit an all-time squat PR at the end of the cut, and I'm like, okay, that was dead weight. I probably didn't need to do that, but it was a very fun body, and I was young. I probably, like I said, I needed that. the power of the dreamer bulk, maybe one could argue to just remain engaged because, bro, things were just moving. If I wanted to move it, I could move it. First time I saw 160-pound dumbbells because my gym didn't have access to those, I remember just clobbering those for like 6 to 8 reps, like no issue. So it was a fun body, just not very useful for, I guess, what would end up being my long-term goals.
Makes sense. Did you ever get any loose skin from getting up there, or were you pretty lucky coming back down?
And no, this is where I really just I'm like people would like just take this into consideration at a certain point, because I didn't. I have like thankfully like really good skin, and I don't necessarily appreciate it like so now that I'm in my 40s. So like I managed to get away with that. But like even now, it's like, oh shoot, I can see like the off season like little like wrinkle here, and just as of like the last month or so, it's finally kind of heightened up, but like the ab thigh for a minute there was I'm like, oh wow, that's different.
Do you do any like
Yeah, it,
skincare routines?
My wife tries to get me on them, but I can't adhere. She's like, do the retinol, the vitamin C, and I'm just this will protect me from sun damage, right? But no, no. I mean, I try to wear sunscreen, like especially like during the summer. But other than that, no, no. But yeah, take care of your skin. It's just it's important. Like Eddie, who just competed like the other day, the Washington show, he won it. He's got like we don't think about this, but he's got just tremendous skin. Like it's like so tight, smooth, and it can really lend to a better look, I feel.
a question I had for you too is because I've thought about trying it because I've seen you do it a couple. I think this will be your second prep where you've like intuitively kind of ate like you in terms of like the full prep. I believe based off like your YouTube.
Hmm.
How long do you think you'd have to prep like using tracking macros to like how many preps would you need to be under your belt to be able to do it intuitively? Would you say?
I think it takes practice, and the little aha moments come from like maybe you're deep into a gaining phase, and you're heavier, and you're like, do I really need to be tracking this? Yeah. Right. It's like, no, I can make, 3,800 to 4,000 calories like happen. I kind of eat the same thing all the time. And then eventually, it just it goes from one step to the next. It's like, okay, maybe you're practicing that at a leaner body weight, it's during some other gaining phase. And then eventually, you do it on a cut, right? And maybe it's just the first 3, 4 weeks of a cut. Or like for me, the way it would work out is like how I kind of came to this epiphany. I would just start cuts that way because I'm like, I know what I got to do. I'm so resistant to muscle loss at this point. Like literally just when it's a good day to go hard, go hard. When you need to back off because you're showing all the symptoms that you need to back off, just do that. And then eventually I did start a prep and I'm like, all right, here are my numbers. I'm going to track this. And I'm like, this feels like busy work at this point. And I just noticed that the numbers weren't very all terrain. Like I couldn't make audibles and calls like if I went on a hike that day, if I was extra sedentary and not hungry. So it just kind of crept from there. And then eventually, I was like, you know what, I'll track if I have to, if I just feel like I'm getting in my own way. And that just never came. I feel like you know, it's like there's this trail that you've always done, right? This hike. It's like you probably don't need to bust out the map to make it there. You just kind of know what you should be doing, what things should feel like. So at this point, I think tracking would be a step back because I can't be as dynamic as I like to be. We all do it in the weight room, right? If that RDL feels like it's going to smash you today and something bad can happen, you'll probably alter it. And it's no different like on this side. And I think just people have a hard time doing that with nutrition for some reason. But there's many clues for a lot of folks that at the very least you're ready to try a fat loss phase where it's kind of auto-regulated.
Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. Do you do that for your peaking as well? Is it more so intuitive when it comes to that?
Oh, peaking's even crazier, man. I literally don't look at myself during the peak week. I don't. I literally just know what my muscles should feel like. And I'll just kind of give it a few flexes here and there. And I'm like, okay, yeah, full, but I can tell there's like some uh some leakage of carbs. So, okay, maybe pull it back, or okay, maybe they don't feel the way they should. But like, I don't, I'd rather not even look at myself. I just literally don't disrobe until the night before so I can make, mostly hydration and mineral adjustments that night or the morning after.
Gotcha. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Like I feel like for me, like I feel like I was stressed out doing that, but
Ah,
it's probably like a de-stressing almost in a sense because there's not so many like variables, or you're not constantly obsessing over your physique, so it probably just helps keep the cortisol nice and low. Eh?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's how you know how it goes, man. You can think four different things about your physique in like one day when you are prepping, right? And during a peak week, that can lead to a lot of wrong moves. But that one, I don't know if I could recommend for people because that one I will admit is kind of weird and eccentric.
Gotcha. Do you do more of a front load when you peak, or is it more of a mid load or back load kind of thing?
Uh, yeah, I guess you would call it a front load. But a lot of that is like how in front does it have to be is how quickly you assimilate the carbohydrate, and then how quickly you clean it up. Because I do think at some point, if you want to be full, you have to have spilled over. And most bodybuilders won't play with that during a peak week, but it's like, no, it cures quite easily. Bodybuilders have probably seen this in themselves all the time. It's like they kind of overeat after a show, and then they're like, oh shoot, like I've kind of messed this up. A few days go by, and they're like, oh, I this is like the right combo of like tight, but I still have that fullness of the night after where I had a little bit too much froyo or whatever. Uh, so yeah, I'd rather have them in the front because I can make a lot more adjustments as opposed to have them in the back end, and you're kind of screwed at that point if you miscalculated something.
Makes sense. Yeah, I tried the Cliff Wilson's rapid backload this past season, and like I practiced it, and it went well when I practiced it. But then on the actual peak week itself, like I did everything the exact same. Woke up and was flat. I was like, what's going on? And so like I found, yeah, it was definitely a very stressful peak. Was just trying to load it in that one day, and like I think you mentioned on your post too, like it takes like 48 hours a lot of times to get all of that glycogen stored. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's. And then like the next one, we did it more like 3 days out and kind of did a moderate and then a higher, and then brought it back down, and it worked out a lot better that way. So yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and Cliff has great success with it. So it's one of those things where I've never played with it. His guys look great. So it's one of those where kind of like for like the back training, like I've gone to go see the sensei for that, Sensei Kasim. And I think the same thing with that. It's like you're probably better off like, doing it with the assistance of Cliff for anyone interested out there, and quite often from what I understand, he will tell people it's like, yeah, you're just not a candidate for this. Like this doesn't look good on you.
100%. And I feel like I'm quite anxiety prone. So I feel like the stress of having that on the one day, I was like, oh, okay, that's probably another thing that kind of threw me off. So yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, it'd probably be best. I'm gonna take that approach, get it from the master, like make sure he's like looking
Yeah,
at me
yeah.
rather than just trying to do it myself. So yeah, no, makes sense. Did you have a question there, Adrian?
No, it was something I wanted to add previously, but we're way past that now. Yeah. So we could move on to on so we talked about some of your peaking protocols, but now this is only an intuitive it's really good information for I think would say intermediate to advanced bodybuilders been doing this for quite a while. And as you said, there is this aha movement that all of a sudden you was like, okay, I've been doing this for so long. I could go again. I could go with my gut and just feel it out and understand what the physique actually looks like. But there's a transition to that, and I would say, when is it a good time? When I think the Brandon was the question, but what would you say is a good timeline from an intermediate to advanced? Like in this little time frame where it's like I kind of get it, but I kind of don't. So that kind of space. What would you say that they do then?
When it comes to more, I guess, an auto-regulated approach to
Yeah.
nutrition. Yeah. So for example, like macro counting. I mean, some people just enjoy it. They find a lot of fulfillment in that. Like I think that is a course that you take for 3 to 4 months or whatever. Like some people get the point a lot sooner, some people might take a little bit longer. And it's like, oh, I understand now. I view food very differently compared to what I did prior to taking that course. And and then from there, I think like even my prep athletes, I don't have them on macros. I have them on calories and protein. Like that's it. That's it. And I think there's a lot of benefit to that. So slowly what I start doing is I give them more autonomy over their situation. So it's like the caloric ranges can broaden up, right? Before that, we're only doing calories and protein, right? So, and I think for someone who is like self-coached, probably the best way to go about this is to constantly challenge yourself to how can I up my game to be what is truly flexible, truly pliable, because things that are not flexible and pliable, they snap, they break, right? Those are classically actually the folks who don't do as well during peak week because things have to be dynamic. That makes them feel a certain way, or maybe things don't go according to plan, and it's that plus the reaction to it. But I think generally speaking, you should just how you view like PRs in the gym when it comes to certain behavioral stuff outside of the gym, the recovery side, the nutrition side, like work to challenge yourself there to just make give yourself a more well-rounded game. But yeah, I mean, like for example, like American football, right? Like the quarterback is the person who's kind of the general on the field, and it would be very limiting to have a quarterback who it's like, okay, this is the play, but shoot, based on what the defense is showing us, this play is just going to get swallowed up. I would much rather maybe we start that way where it's like we just kind of run what's most likely to work in most scenarios. But I also, at some point, want them to be empowered with the ability to make decisions like on the fly. It's like, okay, that plan is screwed, but I got another play that I think can work based on like what I think I'm seeing here. Um, but a lot of that is just like all wisdom really is just pattern recognition. And that's one thing that even people who aren't super good at that naturally, like Cliff's really good at that, at pattern recognition. He'll tell you that's his one of his greatest skill sets as a coach. Um, like you can develop that thing so well and you're able to just catch things like, oh, I've seen this before. I've been here before. I've taken a rep when I shouldn't have taken a rep. My hip felt just like this. I should just leave it here. Um, so yeah, no, I think over time you just want to challenge yourself more when it comes to being able to trust, I guess, your gut feeling and build a certain level of autonomy. Otherwise, you're just going to be kind of bottlenecked as an athlete.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, speaking on the topic on you working with athletes, are there any like non-negotiable circumstances with every single of your athletes?
Probably the first thing, just like level one intervention is like you have to be ready for remote coaching, because we talked about this off air, not everyone we work with is like on the hunt for that pro card, right? Um, so there's certain people that you just have to turn down and you're like, you know what you need more than anything is just like you need to go see a personal trainer, because there's just so many prerequisites that you need to fulfill before I can do anything that's actually going to be worth it for you via this format. Um, and it's crazy because like sometimes like online coaching is like, that's kind of steep, but it's like, oh, personal training is a little bit more expensive even, But like literally that's probably where they're better off investing their money. And then the second thing is just like being open to it being in educational process as well as um, a coaching process. Like eventually, with like my best athletes, the way it works is I'm just kind of here to protect them from themselves. They have a lot of input, and I'm just here to like keep them objective. That's the ultimate goal with everyone, essentially. So I want them to not just be here for the results or to accomplish that first batch of goals, but to be a lifelong learner and maybe change the way they think in such a way that it expands into other arguably more important parts of their life.
Yeah, this is kind of a side question, but when it comes to training, like, because I know there's a lot of people that go for like the sensation when they're training, that kind of go more for that pump or that disruption, and some people are all on the side of like just progressive overload. Where would you kind of rank yourself when you're doing exercise? Like, how important is it to you that like you're getting some sort of sensation from that exercise to the target tissue? Um, and then how important would you weigh like being able to progressively overload it?
Yeah. I think as you get bigger and stronger, um, and competent at movements, like these sensations gonna matter less. Um, and this is just because, I mean, I'm assuming we've all been under a heavy squat at some point. Um, do you feel your legs? No, you just feel like you're getting crushed, right? But if you look at the joints that are moving, it's very easy to tell like which ones are the prime movers, what's being biased on this person in this particular squat. So the example I like to give people because first one is going to be just like, have you ever seen those pictures of like those jack sprinters or football players like head on and they're just doing this and all the muscles are bursting everywhere? Go ask that fella if he felt his chest, you know? And no, no, he didn't. He was busy moving. He was busy in this fight or flight sort of situation, again, back to the brain dominant stuff. So I think that, along with the fact that sometimes what people will do is it's the co-contractors that they feel, and it's not necessarily the actual muscle. And when you're kind of using the co-contractors in what I think is an inappropriate way, you're actually kind of muffling your ability to uh, generate actual tension through the desired muscle group. So, great example of this, like a parallel I like to draw for people is um, how would I grow more? And for those of you on YouTube, you'll be able to see this. And I'm just kind of flexing my arm. If I was in one scenario, just kind of flexing my arm like this with, just resistance I created, or if I put my hand on my wrist and was doing this. The first one, I can feel a whole lot more like mind muscle connection, but I would bank on the latter one that probably me resisting with my own hand is going to probably generate more mechanical tension in the bicep, like for this example. So that's one thing that people feel is just the co-contractors, and it's not necessarily that. And then the other thing is sometimes what they feel is like their body kind of being out of alignment, and their body's kind of telling them like, yo, like fix this, but they confuse it with a sensation that is productive. Example for this one is going to be like, okay, like if I were to try to squeeze like my hand as much as I could wrist straight, I don't get a whole lot of sensation. Now, if I cock my wrist back and try to squeeze, oh shoot, there's that mind muscle connection, you know. But which one is actually producing more force? So sometimes the sensations people feel, it's actually your body telling you like, bro, fix your squat stance. Like you're too wide, you're too narrow, that this is not a good position to be in. So I think it's overblown. And the longer you do it, the less you're going to feel because you're able to let go of inhibition. And basically, all you're trying to do is not get crushed by the weight. It's a fight or flight moment. And I mean, think about it. You can't pinch yourself on two sides, or you can pinch yourself on two sides, but you only feel one side. At a certain point, once your body's kind of let go and it feels like free and safe to exert itself, I guess focused on moving and not necessarily like the pain and discomfort or whatever you might be feeling in that area. So yeah, I think it's vastly overblown. I think with the more practical rep ranges, you're not going to get a whole lot of that burny feeling. And I do think it's something that's very well borrowed from the more enhanced side of things, where they'll tell you that anecdotally that one of the first things they notice when they go from natural to using is that you can actually feel contractions. It's like that muscle is like souped up and you're like, oh my God, like that feels different. But also in their case, a lot of those compounds aren't very tissue selective or as tissue selective as we would like, right? So the pumpy work for them might actually have some benefits because it might kind of redirect that stuff to the tissue that they want to grow. And finally, yeah, the longer you do this, the faster you get at the better you get at using those energy systems. Like I never feel my muscles burn. Like I don't, unless I'm doing some outrageous rep range. Like it just doesn't happen. And I remember when I first started lifting, like just holding dumbbells for a curl, like I just remember all this here was just like ow, like tense and crampy. So as you build up your like bodybuilding conditioning in the training sense, you'll see that your body's very efficient at producing and working within the energy systems that most of your work is going to be under the umbrella of. If there is one broy thing that I think can be a little bit more subjective that I think is valuable, I do think the pump is valuable, and not necessarily that I don't believe that it means good signaling is taking place, or at least not in the way that people think. But it just definitely means, hey, like you're training that muscle group. Like what you're trying to bias is what is working here. So, the mind muscle connection maybe after the set matters a little more.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, because I that's all I usually think about is like when I finish a set, like do I feel like that target tissue being like kind of like inflamed or like having like more blood flow there and stuff like that. But no, that makes a lot of sense there. Do you have anything, Adrian?
Not from the training side. Is yeah, because he's pumped out a lot of training good info out there. Um, but I actually do want to just expand a little bit on just my own curious question. So as you said, like maybe I'm interpreting this wrong, is if we're not actually 100% looking for the pump in a training, and we're not necessarily looking for that peak contraction in some muscles, what would you say the fatigue level would be after the workout? Because I know many individuals will find like, okay, I'm finding this very big pump in my chest or in my delts, and it's absolutely spent. I can't even lift my arm up. That's how they identify, okay, this is a good volume, or I'm like to that fatigue level and I'm good. Yeah. So how would you identify that space is a good level of volume and I'm done? Like that is I'm
Mm.
fatigued.
Well, again, the pump does have some merit. Like if you're on the leg press and your lower back is as pumped as your like quads, like okay, like maybe something needs to be adjusted. Um, and peak contraction is not necessarily a terrible thing. It's just it's probably a good thing for movements that bias that part of the strength curve, right? So, if I'm doing basically a squat pattern compared to most leg extensions, right? Like one is going to be the peak of the strength curve is going to be for what we want is going to be at the top. So at that point, I do think the peak contraction matters. But I don't think it matters a whole lot on the squat pattern as your joints restack at the top, like squeeze your leg against gravity, right? So this is where again, like learning, like don't just own the card. It's like read the manual, like understand like their function of the muscles, understand strength curves. And if you just do that, like that's gonna help you out so much. And it's actually one of those things that once you get people thinking that way, like man, it's like a never ending fun in regards to things that you can nerd out on. I think the biggest way to determine whether or not that movement is serving you in the short term is to again understand the function of that muscle and see if that function is being performed in that movement. So you gotta record yourself, record your lifts. Like I have so much more training footage on my phone than I have like physique selfies, even when I'm prepping, because it's like that important. Like if something feels off, roll that tape. I need to fix something right now. So that's probably uh proprioception combined with a device so that you can record yourself, probably things that should be in a gym bag and that you should prioritize if you're very serious about this. When it comes to like how fatigued you should feel after training, man, that's hard to say. I think you have to look at bookkeeping and see if you're progressing, right? That's probably a good sign that you're doing enough to elicit the response you want. But I think what works even better is when it comes to how you're feeling is looking at how motivated you feel going into sessions. So not necessarily how drained you are after, because you could be drained, but by the time your next training session comes around, you're ready to go. Especially for people who are quite committed. This is the thing that I would use as like a good way to detect how well you're recovering. I mean, think about a contest prep where it's the closest thing that we go through as bodybuilders that kind of falls under the umbrella of classical overtraining, per the books, where it takes months to recover in many cases. That's overtraining. It's very different from a leg day they gave you DOMS. That's not overtraining. Um, and when you are in a prep, it's like as much as you love training, your motivation is not the same. You don't have the same tiger in you when you go in there, right? So I'd probably look at the front end for clues. Am I pretty motivated and ready to do some work at the start of most sessions? That's probably a better proxy to like, am I doing too much or doing too little? Or can I explore doing more because, I feel this way or I feel like just emptied. So much better proxy, pre-training, like how are you feeling?
Makes sense. Yeah. So I know you probably talked about this before on another podcast, but speak on the topic of what does recovery actually look like for you now? Like, has it changed from sleep or mobility work on rest days like today, and those any regeneration strategies?
Man, let's see. So I don't play with a whole lot of funky stuff. I think um, probably the biggest thing is how you frame stress, whether it's your real life or the gym. There's lessons to be learned in both arenas. A lot of those guys who, like Keefe West comes to mind, man. Like I love watching that kid train because he's never worried about like, am I overly fatigued? Am I doing too much? He frames stress in a very positive way that this shit's fucking hard. It's gonna drill me, but it's gonna make me more resistant. And I think the same thing can be taken to because outside the life stress impacts your training, especially if it's there chronically. Like if you're going through a hard stint at work, it's like it's one of those things where you got to frame where it's like, man, shit is fucked right now, but if I'm going to try to thrive under this environment because if I do that, I will be able to look back at this, have all these new skills, have all this new level of tolerance, all within a reasonable amount, of course. It's like sometimes the solution's like, maybe you need a new job, but yeah, I think stress and how you frame it is super, super important. So think about it, a lot of the guys that are killing in the gym, they just kind of have that dumb jock syndrome. It's like, bro, you just did a widowmaker on the hack squats. Like, aren't you worried? And they're like, nah, like that was fun. I'm excited to go do some more and eat meat later. Like no worries. They frame it in a very positive way, right? Whereas like we've seen athletes who they have no athletic background, they want to get into this and it's trying to convince them that like this is safe, this is good, your body's an adaptive machine, you can probably do more than you think. So stress management, stress framing, or stress framing is just as important as like stress management, I think. But outside of that, sleep super important, especially during contest prep. I literally a few weeks ago lowered my caffeine to nothing, just because I realized how slow I metabolize it. And I just learned this not by taking some tests, just literally stopped it, and I'm like, oh my God, like I have out of the time spent in bed, like 10 minutes where I'm awake per the device. And a lot of these devices aren't very not they're not as good as people think, but they are good at picking up like when you wake up. And I'm like, 10 minutes, like for 6 hours, like that's cool because I only got 6 hours, but my sleep score was really good compared to like when I got seven and some change. But 90 minutes of that was like disruption. Uh, there's a caffeine half-life calculator. If you were to plug in your caffeine intake and put it on there, like most people will see that, man, it doesn't turn into zero until like 30 something hours, 40 something hours, like deep into it. And I probably not only metabolize caffeine slower than others, but the threshold for what it takes for it to disrupt my sleep is probably pretty low. Like I could probably have 30 mgs in my system pre-bed, and that's enough to like disrupt my sleeping patterns. So cutting out caffeine is probably something I'm gonna try to do as much as possible outside of maybe having a social coffee, like it's alcohol or something here and there. Um, so sleep, super important. Outside of that, uh, just I think probably the first form of auto regulation you should learn when it comes to your training is like when should you go in, when should you not. So I play that game a lot, and that's why for me like 4 days of training is really good because I have more roaming off days so that I can charge up even more if I feel like I need to. My buddy Cassim, his quote, it really speaks to what you're trying to do here is like bodybuilding is the sport of over recovery. Whereas a lot of sports, like during their busiest times, it's just the sport of getting back up to baseline so that you can play your next basketball game. In our case, we want to be over recovered. So those three, along with just learning to not think about bodybuilding all the time, I think is huge.
Yeah, makes
Cool.
sense. Oh yeah, with competing too, I was curious too with where you've competed in the past. Like, have you pretty well just competed in the States and Canada, or have you ever competed in Europe or anywhere out there?
No, that AMBF show is going to be my first, like European show. So I'm a little brokenhearted about that one, but like that was my thing starting in 22. I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna try to do one international show like every year, especially now that the WNBF, what I primarily focus on, has a lot of good like international shows. I'd argue that their pro shows are probably better overseas. So I'm like, wow, I can. There's a whole bunch of shows in Asia. There's a whole bunch. There's the one in Dubai. So yeah, that's something I want to start doing a little bit more of, just because you kind of get to combine your training with or your bodybuilding with some traveling, and seeing the world's probably been one of the greatest gifts bodybuilding's given me, and it's incredibly like educational, and Americans aren't very well known for traveling.
Makes sense. That's awesome. Do you think you'll come back up to Canada for the WMBF Calgary show one of these years too, or?
Wouldn't be surprised because it's like Canada's like our cousins, right? And with a baby, like it's like, oh shoot, Canada's like quite safe, quite calm. Like I realize how calm it is because I live in Colorado. Things are super calm here. Like drivers are almost, if anything, too passive. And I remember just like going down the freeway, and I'm like, man, I am like passing everyone up. And then I did the conversion. I'm like, okay, I'm not going that fast, but then the speed limit says only that fast, and oh my God, I must seem like a lunatic right now. And I mellowed it out. But yeah, safe place, because I'd probably take my wife and daughter with me, and Banff is like right there too, and she'd get a kick out of that. So yeah, that show was overall a great experience. The people were amazing, and it's just a beautiful part of the country.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Now we want to just get a little. I actually do have just some other side questions on basically your like beyond bodybuilding, just probably your life because now, yeah, you're a father now. There's just more to bodybuilding in your life. So just wanted to ask, just dig a little bit on your philosophy. Now you're still a young guy, and you're still just only in your 40s, only in your 40s.
Only.
I'm up there. I'm up there as well. Like, what legacy do you hope to leave in bodybuilding or coaching?
Um, eventually all your work is going to kind of be like stomped on, and like you just be part of the rubble, right? Like no one will really like there is, I don't know, things that Louis Pasteur did that like we're benefiting from today that no one cares about, you know? And the same thing with like even like within the sport, like we are where we are at today because a lot of guys did the leg work, like they competed in the 2000s. They did it in 1990, this natural bodybuilding thing when it was weird and super eccentric and like why, I think they all set up the groundwork for us to have what we have today. But no one even thinks about it. We just kind of like just dance on top of the rubble essentially. So I guess I don't really care because there's probably somewhere in my lineage, I don't know, a ancestor that was like fighting with a small bear and like lost his hand and fought an infection and lived long enough to procreate and here I am and like I don't care. Like I don't
Yeah,
know.
that makes sense.
So people won't know. I just hope that I can contribute enough so that when the baton is passed, like that next set of people, like just help move it forward in the same way, and the cycle continues. So, yeah, eventually, uh, especially as the gene pool grows, and I look forward to this, like my pictures will be like, God, he looked like a, I don't know, like kind of, it's like when you see like NBA guys from the 60s dribble, it's like they're all dribbling upright and they're all like slow, it's black and white underhand shots. And you compare it to the modern game, like eventually my bodybuilding is going to be that. And eventually whatever I contributed in regards to like strategies, they'll become maybe some of them are right, such standard practice that no one even thinks about like, hey, someone had to kind of like clue us in to at least head in this general direction. So yeah, it's just it'll be what it is, but I'm not too concerned about that.
That's
I
good.
feel like you guys have already attributed so much to the space. Like I remember when I just got into it too, and when I was started competing back in 2014, and then I started looking at like Lane Norton and you guys yourself. I think I first looked at Matt Ogus, and then he was trained by Eric Helms. So then I started looking at Eric Helms, and then I started looking at your guys' stuff, and then just from there, just yeah, the amount of knowledge that you guys have pumped out over these past, I guess did you guys start up in 2010 or 2009? The Team 3WJ?
About that time, whoa, you are a lifer, dude. If you remember Matt Ogus, like I can't even like get the and like I felt like Matt Ogus was like post this other golden era of history. Like right, these kids, I'm like, you don't know what came before, right? But nevertheless, like these kids don't even know about Matt these days. Almost it seems like like all the people who follow Matt, they're like in their 30s, their dads. It's just things have changed. But yeah, 2009 is about when we started really getting the wheels rolling with this thing.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because yeah, like, because I wouldn't be where I am today without like seeing your guys' stuff. Because like the way I was going about it back then was yeah, like meal plans, like soup, like eating the exact same everything, the exact same thing every day, like just tons of oil, and just it was not the best approach or a
Yeah.
sustainable approach. So yeah, like I'm very thankful for what you guys have been able to do.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. Yeah, it's crazy. It's been a minute now, man. I can't wait till we I don't know, officially hit that 20-year mark of doing this thing because I think that matters in the fitness industry because, people come and go, like speaking of like folks that people don't really remember or know of, it's like a lot of these young kids don't know who Christian Guzman is.
Yeah.
It's like, what? At a certain point, like he was, I think like he got the million subscribers on YouTube, right? And like just kind of again the rubble, like the fitness industry has a way of just making people like go on the witness protection program, it seems.
Yeah.
Any further questions that you wanted to ask him, Wally?
I think that's everything. Again, I just appreciate you taking the time out of your day to hop on here and just, yeah, supply us with a bunch of your wisdom.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, just final thing. Any final thoughts or any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
um, yeah, just I guess be first of all, like especially for people who are newer to this, it's like get yourself a mentor. I think that is like my first mentor was this personal trainer when I was 16, you know, and obviously you outgrow your mentors, but I think you should always like have one in some area like all the time, like like Cassim, like if I have any questions when it comes to uh, biomechanics of something, it's like, fuck, I got that guy right there, So have a mentor, I think, at all times. I think that's super, super important. And it could be relevant to what you're doing or just like your overall like life mission. I think that is like that's one thing you'll see that a lot of successful people in any endeavor share is like they wasn't just them. They usually had these trustees of people that they could go to with things. So yeah, bodybuilding, find yourself some mentors. Best way to get a mentor, I will say this, is you'd be surprised how like not resourceful people are these days. Like folks will I forget it about I forget to do this sometimes and I'll like I use the Happy Scale app to track my weigh-ins and someone will ask me like what is the app? You know? And not that I'm all that. It's like I'm like maybe not the old man on a mountain, but like the old man on a hill, right? And I'm like, you come to me to ask me what is the app? You know, it's like in my shoes, this is how I did it, and this is how I leveraged a lot of good minds. Is by the time I got to someone with a question, they could tell that I had put in all this leg work on the front end, and I was stuck for a reason and they knew the answer or close to it, but they saw that, oh shoot, I can see why this kid is stuck. And what because it's so uncommon, what you see is that like these people will literally give you like so much time because they're used to things like what app is that? And like in my head I'm like, in my your shoes I would literally just have taken a screenshot, reverse search the image, boom, so you'd be surprised how many good mentors, like people who are like way up there, you can have invest time in you if they see you're putting in the effort, that you're genuinely curious and you really want to learn because they've probably been in your shoes before and that's why they are who they are right now.
Great. Yeah, that's really, really good advice. So, for all of you listeners, we will link all of Alberta's information down below. Besides Instagram, is there anywhere else we could find you?
Uh, no, not really. I mean, YouTube, we do a little something there. But yeah, it's a slow mover. But yeah, Instagram's probably where you can find not just me, but the rest of the other coaches and all the information we try to put out consistently.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much again, Alberto, for your time here. We will link everything down below. Until then, we'll see you guys next time. Yes.